artist interviews, and I cover my own journey as an artist myself with my new single, You Forget, coming out June 22nd. So let's dive into this review of The Flash and its dedication on joy. Today I will be fluffing your aura with some unicorn amethyst or rainbow amethyst and orange calcite, both crystals perfect for anybody trying to choose joy, embody joy, feel joy, despite the pain that they rightfully could feel. Because when someone hurts you, it hurts. But feelings are choices, and eventually you can choose to feel better. And that's what this movie is all about. But before I do that, let me do a quick disclaimer. Ezra Miller is an abuser, and they have a lot of victims and a lot of sins, and they've caused a lot of pain themselves. And I don't want to list all those things because this is about healing you. You can look them up if you choose, but I just felt you should acknowledge it because that's part of the roughness of approaching this film. And let's just dive into the Reiki. It is led by somebody that caused a lot of harm and has a lot of victims, and they do a great job in the role of Barry. They are fantastic, and I think that Barry, to really just talk about the character itself, I think Barry is one of the best comic book characters in part uh, because they are an emblem of tragedy and traumas that most of us will never know and are happy not to know them. I mean, he loses his mother. His mother is murdered before him via a supernatural being that is trying to stop him, aka Barry, from becoming a supernatural being when he grows up. And his father is falsely arrested and accused of the crime and spends literally his entire childhood and teenhood and even adulthood paying for a murder he didn't commit. So he loses two parents in one day because somebody's trying to stop him from achieving his power. And there's something supernatural about that and cosmic about that, but at the same time relatable and grounded. How many of us have looked at our lives and asked ourselves, I have a lot of enemies for not doing much, you know? Like, I don't even think, I'm not even a supervillain. I'm not even Lex Luthor, and I'm not even Superman. How the hell do I have enemies? And we live in a world where there's like a division. People either say if it's you versus the world, then it's you. If it's you versus the world, then it's the world. Like there's this kind of imbalance where it's either everybody's wrong or just you are wrong. And either way it's overwhelming. Because sometimes the world can be wrong. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. We kill our heroes. That's how they become saints. Our whole history is written to the many times we turned on each other and somebody won. And I think that Barry is just such a joyous character. He's so sweet and funny, and he tries, and he's very empathetic, and he had every reason not to be. He is a victim in every kind of way, and yet he's good, and he tries to do good by others. And part of his tragedy is there's something beautiful and really sad when you see a child kind of say things like, I want to be a lawyer to defend human rights, and you're kind of like, oh, we don't have those. Oh, I see those are struggling, I want to become an environmental lawyer. And you're like, because we're killing the environment. Like, you don't want a kid to be hyper aware of how dark this world can be and is becoming. And he just knew from an instant in one night, so abruptly and so cruelly. And that's why you kind of understand why he becomes super obsessed with saving his mother. Because I felt like this movie was like Multiverse of Madness meets Everything Everywhere all at once. And we'll start with the Multiverse of Madness comparison. I mean, obviously this is a comic book film. I think they approached Barry's powers very magically. Like there's something about how he moves, especially through portals, that you're just like, whoa, like this is like abracadabra kind of stuff. And I think that He is very similar to Wanda Maximoff, although a much more lighter character, because he's frustrated over the fact that as somebody who can run through time and space, he above all else knows there's various versions of him. And there might be a version of him out there that isn't as sad, that didn't have it as rough, that didn't have to survive so many things from a young age. What if, despite being the Flash and despite being superpowered and despite saving people, he's the worst version of him because he's the saddest? And that just that crushes you, because I think we all feel that way. Whether you believe there's another version of you out there, a higher version, or you believe that you are the only version of you and somehow you're just not measuring up, there is a mass feeling of like, why am I just not elevating? Why am I not the best version of me? Why am I dreaming of this person that is so powerful and so good and so cool and so happy and so safe, and yet somehow she can't materialize? Somehow he can't come to this reality. And he's like, it all goes down to the point of when my mother died, my whole life changed. And if you've suffered from trauma or multiple traumas, like technically Barry has, you understand that sentiment of just like, there's this one moment that if it hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't have spent a decade or more grieving, trying to figure me out, suffering from depression, crumbling. And his powers give him relief, but he wants them to give him reward because, yeah, he's saving people. But it's not like he's not living in a dingy apartment and struggling for rent, because he's not using his powers for ill. And you don't make that much as a forensics officer, you know? And he has to pay his dad's lawyer bills. Like, he's going through it. And it all boils down to that one night. So, naturally, like WandaVision, he becomes determined to change time and space and go through them so that he could get to the happy version of him. And he finds that happy version. There is a version of him that his mother didn't die. And that kid is healthy. He's going to college. He's happy. His parents absolutely adore him. And he sees this person, and this is where the film gets ironic and really, really, really deep. We don't think bad things are meant to happen to us, but we do think good things are meant to happen to us. And part of our frustration is we think the good things are blocked. But the irony of Barry is he doesn't believe his mother was meant to die, but he does believe he was meant to become the Flash. And here comes the dilemma. He meets this younger version of him with his parents that's super happy, and he realizes, oh wait, like this is the day I became the Flash. You should become the Flash. You were meant to become the Flash. I'm blocking you from becoming the Flash. And he takes this version of him to the event that gave him his superpowers. Obviously, the kid gets superpowers, and I just found that moment so interesting and much richer than what you. It's one of those, like, you ever watch a movie and you realize how deep it is after you watch it, once it's over and you start discussing it? It felt like that. Like, it felt like one of those moments where I was like, oh, he doesn't think this horrible tragedy should have happened to him. He didn't deserve it. It shouldn't have happened. And if I have the power to change it and make myself powerful and happy, I'm going to do it. And it, by the end of the film, you kind of feel like maybe both should happen, you know? Both good things and bad things. Maybe there should be multiple versions of you, and you should just make the version you are the best for you. And that's kind of the lesson he learns, because he gives his younger version of him powers. And obviously the kid goes wild for a time, typical comic book dilemmas. Barry loses his powers in exchange. They meet new versions of the Batman and Supergirl. And Sasha Calle is absolutely amazing as Supergirl. I really, 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 really hope she gets like a spin-off or a TV show or something, because she was so phenomenal and so strong. And it was an absolute delight to see Michael Keaton as Batman. He was just so good. And I think all in all, every character you meet has this tragedy. Bruce losing his parents, Sasha Gaye as Supergirl, aka Kara El, she came to Earth to protect Superman, to be his family, um, because their planet was destroyed, and yet she never found him. And now she's kind of like, I was sent to do this mission that I can't complete on this planet that is my, I don't know what it is because mine got destroyed. And there's an emptiness to all of them because they lost their family, they lost their home, and they're all dealing with the different feelings of whether or not this was all meant to be, which is the very essence of Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is one of the most beautiful films I've seen, Demented as well, because that's a film. Um, that is a film that is all about, not just about whether what things are meant to be, but whether or not you actually enjoyed your life. It's not just about whether you are the best or worst version of you. Are you the happiest version of you? Did you do the best with what you got, or did you always live in your head wondering what you could have had? And that's Barry's dilemma. And he feels, because he's the Flash, that he can resolve that dilemma, that he could rip that existentialism, that wound away from him. But it's that wound that made him super compassionate and super empathetic. Because if you see the version of him that has the powers and his parents, he's a little bit of a mess, a happy, jovial mess. And he doesn't have the same lessons and kind of self-check and self-control that Barry does, the Barry who lost his parents. And it's such a jagged pill to know that all the bad things that happened to you were not only meant to be, but they actually made you who you are. Beyond bitter or sad, they did make you stronger. They did make you smarter. They did make you more compassionate. And you could choose which side to lean on, the sadness or the compassion. And I think that's the lesson that Barry learns in the end. He chooses happiness. He chooses peace. He chooses acceptance. That the type of hero he became is because of the type of tragedies he experienced. And it's a really beautiful thought that I hope you take away with you. Who you are today is because of what you've been through, for better or worse. All your good comes from those experiences as well as all your bad. And you have a choice to lean into one side. And I hope you chose to lean into the joy. So check out deandrareviewsitall.com. You forget 777, yes, I believe in angel numbers, out June 22nd. And follow, subscribe.